Alright, my wife wants me to read this book here, The Paleo Solution by Robb Wolf. And so we thought, since there's so many other people that are interested in it that we know, that we thought maybe we'd go ahead and read it out loud. Might be a little discussion, who knows. The thing's called The Paleo Solution, The Original Human Diet by Robb Wolf. The particular edition we have is 2010. I'm going to skip the endorsements, the table of contents, the acknowledgments. Do I really need to read the foreword? Did you read the foreword?
I don't think I read that part. I'll read the next page.
Yeah, I don't think we need to read the foreword. I guess the prologue is where we'll start, which is on page 11 of this particular edition. So preemptive thanks to Teresa Dees for loaning us the book. I say preemptive because she's doing the diet and we're not at this point, really. I mean, doing some of it, but anyway, let's read the book here. Prologue. I want you to try a little observation game. Go to a public location with lots of people and look around. Not in a creepy Chester the Molester way. Just observe the folks around you and keep a mental tally of the following. How many people look healthy? You know, vibrant, energetic, slim, athletic. All? Some? None? We tend to hang out at the Walmart. Enough said. He says, I live in Chico, California, which is famous for two things, a brewery, Sierra Nevada, and the fact that Playboy rated our university the top party school in the nation in 1987. Although our population tends to be on the younger side, we still have a decent age mix. When I play the above observation game, how many people look healthy, I see few examples of health. Little kids are chubby. Teenagers are muffin-topped and hollow-eyed. And instead of enjoying active golden years, elderly folks are consigned to walkers and wheelchairs. You may be shrugging and thinking, yeah, so what? That's all normal. Well, normal can be mistaken for common because the above conditions are neither right nor normal. There's an analogy about environmental change that goes like this. A frog is living in room temperature water, going about its normal froggy life. One day, the temperature of the water starts to rise, but it happens so incrementally, the frog does not even notice. While he is frogging around, he literally boils alive. I'm not sure that this scenario would actually happen this way. I surely hope that our friend Kermit would notice things were going from balmy to bisque, but the analogy is powerful, and it eerily describes our modern world. As a society, we've become so sick, weak, and broken, we accept the abnormal as normal. We accept that our kids are too fat to play and blame it on genetics. What people do not realize is that it's not a frog in the soup, it's us, and the temperature is most assuredly rising. I'm not sure a frog is in the paleo diet, but if it is, we may find some recipes for frog soup in here at some point. Alright, let's see. Chapter 1. I guess we'll go on and read at least some of Chapter 1 and get started here. As we go along, there are some pictures in here I'll probably show you. Probably will not get all the way through Chapter 1 at this point, since it is a little on the late side, but hopefully far enough to give us all the desire to continue to read more. Alright, so Chapter 1, he says, my story, your story, our story. Cheesy but true, in parentheses. This book could save your life. No, not as a flotation device. I mean the information in it. You may have noticed from the cover that it's a health and diet book, but it is much more than that. Doesn't note that on my cover. I don't have the jacket anymore, so. It is also a story as old as humanity. Ooh, we're going to eat snake. I know, that's a remarkably grandiose claim. At this point, you have no reason to believe a word I say. I have yet to buy you a drink, and we have known each other for less than a paragraph, so perhaps I should tell you a little bit about myself. I'd rather have the drink. I grew up in Redding, California, a medium-sized town on Interstate 5, about 3 hours south of the Oregon border. Considering I'm a kid from rural NorCal, you might think that this is a story of cow tipping, NASCAR, and keg stands. This would reflect my heritage, and I can certainly spin a yarn about redneck shenanigans worthy of the best Jerry Springer Show highlight reels. But this book is not that story. This is the story of being the son of well-meaning but unfortunately perpetually sick parents. Mom and Dad smoked, had heart disease, and a host of other health problems. From an early age, I was steeped in fun things like gallbladder surgeries, high triglycerides, pacemakers, asthma, emphysema, and arthritis. My earliest memories of my parents include a dizzying combination of medical worries, doctor visits, and medications. Not that this stuff dominated every minute of our lives, of course, but looking back now, I realize these health concerns became like background music for our family. In addition to, or perhaps because of, being sick, my parents tended to have defeatist attitudes. I remember one uplifting exchange with my mom. Me: "What do you think it will be like when you're 100 years old?" Mom: "Oh goodness, I hope I don't live that long." Me: "Why?" A word that has defined my career path as well as landed me in hot water frequently enough to get me officially categorized as soup stock. Mom's reply: "If you were that old, you would just hurt so much and you would not be able to get around. It would just be miserable." My mom tended to be a shiny ray of sunshine most days. Even at an early age, and despite the decidedly unhealthy environs of my upbringing, I had always had a notion that what we ate and how we lived could influence our health, wellness, and longevity. This innate sense, combined with my parents' poor health, spurred my interest in nutrition and fitness. I suspected that, with smart food choices, one need not suffer from heart disease and decrepitude. Armed with this idea, I was determined to avoid the fate of my parents. Complementary to my interest in health and nutrition was an almost fanatical participation in the athletic activities common to most kids: football, wrestling, and karate. But as the people who know me will tell you, I tend to be obsessive about my interests. I read everything I could find on nutrition and athletic training, whether it was a book, magazine, or an old bodybuilding manual. This focus and passion for training and nutrition eventually resulted in a teenage state championship in powerlifting and an amateur kickboxing record of 6-0. I should be embarrassed to admit this, but no matter how strong my love was for athletics, it always played second fiddle to my nerdy side. In high school, I competed at the state level in the Science Olympiad. Really, I did it for the girls. Really. After high school, I bounced around a number of science-related undergraduate tracks, ranging from engineering to physics to molecular biology, but I eventually wrapped up a BS in biochemistry and had my sights set on medical school. Now all this would be fairly unremarkable were it not for the fact I also had a strong sense of rebellion and countercultural leanings. Ironically, this dark side led to a long deviation away from health and was nearly my undoing. You see, I developed an interest in unwashed hippie girls and vegetarianism. Second floor, housewares, vegetarianism, and clueless rebels. I think that my story is not that different from many kids. Rebel against the basic values and norms of your parents' society. Make everything you grew up with wrong. I thought everything American sucked, all business was evil. You know, typical youthful idiocy. It was about this time that a perfect storm of misinformation and self-delusion took my better judgment and my health from me. The misinformation centered on the notion that vegetarianism was not only healthier than the dirty practices of eating toxic meat, but it was morally superior as well. This certainly played to my interest in nutrition. It also sang to my youthful desire to not only be different, but also live on a moral high ground. You may be asking yourself, how could he let this happen? And also, how the hell will this story save my life? I'll get to the life-saving stuff in a minute. For now, you must understand my move toward vegetarianism also carried the prize of hippie girls. Hippie girls who tended to be both vegetarian and pretty hot. Well, hot in a depressed, misanthropic, high likelihood of hip fracture due to a fall sort of way. I traded in my barbecue grill for a rice steamer and pressure cooker. As a bonus, I scored a host of medical problems. My foray into vegetarianism started innocently enough: giant pots of steamed rice, pressure-cooked black beans, homemade hummus, and plenty of tofu veggie stir-fries. I'm a damn good cook, so making all this vegetarian grub taste good was never a problem. The problem was that my government-recommended complex carb meals left me ravenously hungry about 45 minutes to an hour after eating. I also developed a monstrous sweet tooth, which I had to battle constantly. I was gassy, bloated, and started having really weird digestive problems. Looking back, I always had some problems with blood sugar swings and wacky digestion. I just assumed it was normal, especially when growing up in a house where sickness was the norm. Interestingly, with the adoption of my vegetarian diet, these seemingly random health problems became worse. I studied everything I could find about vegetarian nutrition and alternative medicine. I studied at the top macrobiotic institutes. I consulted with experts in vegetarian eating. After much analysis, I decided I was just detoxifying, a quasi-mythical state in which the body releases stored toxins. So I was vegetarian and I detoxed for a few years. When I went to the Macrobiotic Institute, they assured me I was on the right track and I just needed to try harder. I attended yoga seminars in which vegetarian food was the topic. My problems were attributed to moral ineptitude and an inability to evolve. At the ripe old age of 26, I had high blood pressure, 140/95, high triglycerides, over 300, and bad levels of cholesterol. The doctors at the University Health Center told me I'd need to go on blood pressure medication someday. My gambit to avoid the fate of my parents was not going well. Sick and desperate, I applied and was accepted to a school of alternative medicine. Finally, I thought, I'll get my health squared away with the knowledge I will gain at this enlightened institution. I'll not only be in position to avoid the fate of my parents, but also help people find the righteous road to health via vegetarian living. Academia. Abandon all hope, ye who study here. My time at the naturopathy school was a disaster. Not because of anything inherently wrong with the program, but rather because I was getting really sick. My high blood pressure and wacky digestion seemed inconsequential compared to a nearly crippling bout of depression that left me fixated on death every waking moment. Gross anatomy class was an intense experience with this mindset. My stomach problems were getting worse and really scary. I went to several doctors, including naturopaths, MDs, and acupuncturists. All of them kicked things off with an abdominal exam that involved some pretty deep poking and prodding of my belly. By this stage, even mild pressure on my stomach brought about such sharp pains I would nearly leap off the table. The MD thought I had irritable bowel syndrome and colitis. He thought I might need a bowel resection. The naturopath thought I was still detoxing. The acupuncturist was by far the most helpful and proclaimed me a mess. I and my healthcare providers thought the diet I was eating was nearly perfect. Whole grains, beans galore, tofu for protein, and loads of fresh veggies. Whatever my problem, it most assuredly was not my diet. Given my dire condition, debilitating depression, colitis, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, insomnia, and a nearly constant pain throughout my body, it was the opinion of my doctors that if I were not eating as well as I was, I'd be dead. I was 28 years old. I was down from a muscular and athletic 180 pounds to an emaciated 140 pounds. I literally wanted to die, but I was too big a chicken to do the deed. I was pancreas deep in the best of modern and alternative medicine, plus the evolved moral thinking of the superior vegetarian elite. I was screwed and I had no idea what to do. In an ironic twist, my mom's deteriorating health likely saved my life. Go with the gut. My parents had been in and out of the hospital for surgeries, both major and minor. They had startled the family multiple times with problems so severe that we thought, this is it. In the summer of 1999, my mom went into the hospital with heart and lung problems that the doctors could not get a handle on. It looked very much like these problems might kill her. The doctor said she was inflamed everywhere. The lining of her heart and lungs seemed to be nearly on fire. She could not breathe. She was in excruciating pain. It's nothing you want to see anyone go through, especially your mom. The only things that seemed to help was high doses of anti-inflammatory drugs, but these had powerful side effects nearly as bad as her original problem. This went on for days until finally a diagnosis was made: autoimmune disease. My mom's immune system, designed to protect her from microbial invaders like bacteria and viruses, had turned on her and appeared hell-bent on killing her. When the medical reports came back, we were stunned, as she had a laundry list of interconnected diseases: rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus erythematosus, Sjögren's syndrome. I'd heard of some of these. Others were completely new to me. With the diagnosis came a treatment plan involving immune-suppressing drugs and anti-inflammatories. These drugs were dangerous and prone to complications, but the cocktail would at least quiet the warfare in her body to a point that she would live and be reasonably comfortable. Amid this fear, confusion, and drama, a quiet discovery was made by some routine lab work ordered by a rheumatologist. In addition to the autoimmune diseases, my mom also had an intolerance to a protein called gluten, which is found in wheat, oats, rye, barley, and a few other grains. The disease is called celiac, and as I mentioned, this diagnosis likely saved my life. A phone call with my mom revealed that her celiac disease was a type of autoimmune response in the small intestine. She told me many people suffered the problem with varying degrees of severity. Her rheumatologist suspected that the celiac might be in play in all of her autoimmune conditions. The solution was simple in theory, nearly impossible in practice. Remove all foods that contain gluten from the diet: bread, pasta, most cereal, and all sorts of baked goods. Sauces, marinades, and similar prepared items are suspect too, as everything seems to contain gluten in one form or another. Not only do you need to read labels, you need to be exceptionally careful while eating out. A grilled chicken breast could be contaminated with gluten by simply being cooked on a grill that had shared French bread from an earlier meal. For my mom, the removal of gluten brought an immediate improvement in her stomach issues and autoimmune condition. She had suffered from gallstones years before, and this led eventually to the removal of her gallbladder. She had also suffered from the same problems I had: colitis, acid reflux, and the catch-all term irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. Interestingly, my mom's rheumatologist also recommended she avoid most legumes, such as beans and bean sprouts, as they were known to irritate conditions such as lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. This was happy news for me because my mom was feeling better, although still far from healthy. But it was also a world-altering moment. My mom's illness, and presumably my illness, was caused by the holiest of holies, the vegetarian diet, the base of the food pyramid. Grains and legumes, the most wholesome and righteous of foods, appeared to be out to kill us. I was stunned. How could this be? If whole grains and legumes were making us sick, what should I eat? I was literally sitting on my doorstep on an uncharacteristically warm and sunny day in Seattle when an idea struck me. How did we evolve? What did we eat in our remote past? Hunter-gatherers, evolutionary biology, the Paleo Diet. I remembered hearing about a way of eating that emulated the diets of our hunter-gatherer forebears. I jumped up and went in the house, turned on the computer, waited forever for the dial-up to engage, and used a nifty new search engine called Google to research the term Paleo Diet. What I found stunned me. Our human and pre-human ancestors had lived for 3 million years with a remarkably high level of health, eating only lean meats, seafood, nuts, seeds, and seasonal fruits and vegetables. The agricultural revolution saw our ancestors become small, weak, and sick. Infant mortality exploded. The most important site I found initially was Professor Arthur Devaney's Evolutionary Fitness. Professor Devaney is a retired economist who has emulated the exercise and eating of a hunter-gatherer for over 30 years. He is 70 years old, 6 feet 2 inches tall, and 205 pounds with less than 10% body fat. This was the normal state for our hunter-gatherer forebears. I began corresponding with Professor Devaney, and at his suggestion, I contacted Professor Lauren Cordain of Colorado State University, who would ultimately become my mentor in the study of Paleolithic nutrition. Professor Cordain was the world's leading expert on the topic of ancestral diet as it relates to our health and wellness. His research was published in journals ranging from immunology to rheumatology to ophthalmology to nutrition. This is unheard of in the modern world of scientific specialization. His secret? If you know the answer, evolutionary biology, it is easy to reverse engineer the question. Professor Cordain knew that evolution via natural selection was the answer to modern health questions. Other key resources of my early learning included the books Protein Power and Protein Power Life Plan by Michael and Mary Eads. The Eads had worked as bariatric physicians for over 20 years. Their amazing success with overweight patients was the result of understanding our ancestral diet. They reversed diabetes, depression, GI problems, and autoimmunity while helping clients lose enormous amounts of weight. And that's at page 20, and we're going to stop right there for this time. I don't know what you think about the whole evolutionary biology thing. Whatever you may think of it, let's suspend our disbelief for the time being. until we find out what he's got to say, because it seems to be working for people. So we'll stop here. Thank you.